welcome back to my channel. My name is Whitney and I am so happy to have you here. Today I thought I would do a really fun video. This is actually going to be my first like straight up just book recommendation video with a little spin on it, and I am super excited. So I am going to be recommending books based on some of my favorite TV shows. Hopefully you guys love these TV shows too, or if there's a book you love and a TV show you've been interested in that kind of correspond, then you can find a new TV show too. Yeah, so I have a super long list. I'm thinking about making this a series if that's something that like you guys would be interested in. Maybe like bi-weekly, because I have a ton and a few other little ideas that I think would kind of fit within this series as well, and then I can always do movies, and I think this would be a really fun time. So the very first show that I'm going to be talking about is probably my favorite show right now. I've watched the whole thing twice, and then there's a documentary on Netflix about it, and I've watched that as well, and that is Schitt's Creek. This is a Canadian sitcom following a very, very wealthy family who loses all of their money and they have to move to a small town which they own because they bought it as a joke, and it's the only asset that the bank didn't deem like worthy of taking. So they move to this very small town and they have nothing and they're living out of a motel, and it is just really, really funny watching them adapt to this life, and there is a wonderful cast of characters. And it is a great show. I highly recommend it. It is my all-time favorite sitcom and my favorite show right now. One of the main aspects that I love about this show is there is a male-male relationship, and the two male characters who are in this relationship don't face any homophobia whatsoever. Which is very rare, I think, in media and in TV shows, and I think it's important to tell stories having to do with dealing with homophobia and having hard times and coming out, etc., etc., but it's also super important to have stories about queer characters who are just living their lives, and they are getting married and falling in love just like hetero people. So I absolutely loved that about this show. I think that that is like, I wish more shows would do that. It was just so accepting and it was amazing, and it was just so casually done. Nobody had an issue with it. It was so great. And the characters that are in this relationship, David and Patrick, it's one of my favorite like on-screen relationships that I've ever seen because it's just so pure and wholesome. So I wanted to recommend a book that I think is on the same level as their relationship, if that's one of your favorite parts of the show. And the book that I chose is a very popular one, so I'm sure you've either read it or heard about it or plan to read it, and that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. So this follows two young men. One is the Prince of England, and one is the first son of the first female president of the United States. And it is very loosely enemies to lovers. They start off not really liking each other, and then they fall in love, and obviously they have a lot more issues in this book than David and Patrick have, because it is an issue of both of them being in positions of power and being in the media, and obviously Henry being the Prince of England. The royal family is not known for being very accepting, and neither is this fictional one. It is very rooted in reality, and I really love that. But their relationship is so sweet and so wholesome that it really reminds me of David and Patrick's. They care for each other so incredibly much, and it is so, like, they're so grounded in their relationship, and it's definitely like pretty serious from the start. And then there's one who is very serious, so in this case it would be Prince Henry, and then in the show Patrick is more of like the serious like businessy type, and then one who is like a total goofball, very dramatic, very like over the top. In the book it would be Alex, the son of the president, and then David in Schitt's Creek. Obviously, if you've seen it, David Rose is just the best character. So their dynamic is very, very similar, so if you like that in Schitt's Creek, I would read this book, and if you like the romance in this book, I would check out Schitt's Creek. Okay, the next show on my list is one that is very, very popular right now on Netflix, and that is Bridgerton. You probably already know that Bridgerton is already based on a book series by Julia Quinn, I believe. There are 8 books in that series, so there's plenty of entertainment. I haven't personally read that series yet, although it is pretty high on my list. I do want to get to it. But if you have been living under a rock, Bridgerton is set in like Regency era England, my personal favorite era, and it follows dukes and duchesses and romance, and that's like all there is. It's also, I feel like I'm going to be talking about Gossip Girl a lot, but it is also kind of like an 1800s English Gossip Girl, because there is a like mysterious person who is writing gossip about everyone in town, and it's just very reminiscent of that. And for this, I'm going to recommend a book series, and this is the Girl Meets Duke series by Tessa Dare. This is a Regency romance series. There are 4 books in total. The 4th one's not out yet, and I don't think there's a release date right now because it keeps getting pushed back. So I'm very sad about that, but the first 3 are amazing, and they are companion novels following a group of 4 friends. They're wonderful. They're all just a beautiful, contained romance story. I do think that the books are much better than Bridgerton itself, because if you've read or seen any of the controversy regarding Bridgerton and it's like issues with consent, a little fishy, not a big fan of that, was not a fan of that episode. I won't give any spoilers, but just like be a little wary of that. Whereas these books are obviously set in 1800s England, but they have big themes of consent and of love and trust and very modern ideals of relationships that are super important, but back in the day when they probably weren't as important, but that's why I love these books. So the first book is The Duchess Deal, and this follows Emma, who is a seamstress, and she designs a dress for a wedding to a duke, and the wedding never happens, but she doesn't get paid, so she shows up at the duke's house and she's like, yo, give me my money, and the duke is like, how about you marry me instead? Because his wedding fell through, and he has some like pretty severe facial scarring from a war injury he was in, so he's kind of like frowned upon, kind of like looked down on by society, and that's why his like wife-to-be dipped. But Emma's like, I don't care, let's do it, I'm a seamstress, let's get married, and they fall in love, and it was just so beautiful. And it's kind of like a like the brooding bad boy like opens up and gets vulnerable, and it was just wonderful. The second book, which is my personal favorite in the series so far, is called The Governess Game, and this follows Alex, who becomes a governess to a duke who has 2 wards, 2 young girls that he's taking care of, and she becomes the governess, and then they slowly fall in love. And then in this book there is also like kind of the issue of her being his employee, and they're not sure how to like make that mesh, you know, which is a very like topical kind of conversation in relationships these days. That's very like, that's a modern ideal once again back in the day, which I really enjoy. And I just really love Alex's character. She's very like to the point. She's an astronomer. She loves reading, and I just think she's wonderful. And the third book is called The Wallflower Wager, which is also so good. And this follows Penny, who is a lady of high standing, but she hasn't been like out and about for a while. She loves her animals. She has like an otter and a hedgehog and all kinds of animals that she just kind of stays at home with. But her aunt is like, you're becoming a spinster if you don't like get out in the town, like I'm gonna have to like send you away because it's embarrassing. So she kind of gets someone to help her, and then they go like hang out and fall in love, and it's all just very cute. It's like that kind of romance that just like makes me giddy. Like, it's so adorable. Yeah, so those are the 3 books. Highly recommend them. The romance is way better than Bridgerton, and I really liked Bridgerton. I did binge that in like a day. Okay, the next TV show on my list is You, which is also based on a book by Carolyn Kepnes, which I also have not read. But I want to, and it's a thriller. So this follows a guy named Joe who is very obsessive. I don't want to explain. I mean, I'm sure 99% of you have already seen You, but at the same time I don't want to give any spoilers just in case you haven't. But basically this dude named Joe who is like a sociopath and is obsessed with these women. There are 2 seasons, we're coming out with a 3rd one. It's very creepy, very like psychological thriller, like you're on the edge of your seat. Highly recommend. It was so good. Cannot wait for the next season. And the book that I recommend to you, if you are a fan of You, the show, is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyakon Braithwaite. This is a very short book, but it like packs a serious punch. So it is about this girl whose sister is a serial killer. And she is constantly cleaning up her sister's messes. So her sister will kind of like call her in the middle of the night and be like, oh my god, I just killed my boyfriend, but I swear it was self-defense. But you know, after like the 3rd time that happens, like, was it really self-defense? And her sister goes and cleans up the mess, brushes it away, helps her sister, and then that's kind of just the end of it. And she's struggling with not knowing whether she should continue to clean up after her sister or turn her in. So it is kind of a battle, an inner battle of like wanting to protect your family but also wanting to do what is like morally correct, because obviously her sister is murdering men. And then it all comes to like a boiling point when this dude at the main character's work, who she has a crush on, asks her sister out, and then she's like, oh shit, this dude that I really like is gonna die. So that's kind of where we are. It's kind of a funny book, also very interesting. I haven't read anything like this. I think it would be really good for fans of You because there are some like twists and turns in here, just like there are in the show, that are very unexpected and kind of like seem to come out of left field, but they make so much sense in the story. So I highly recommend this book. Very good, and just like You is like bingeable in a day, this book you can easily read in one sitting. I definitely did. Okay, the next show is one that I've actually only seen the 1st season of, but I absolutely loved it and need to get to the other seasons, and that is Broadchurch. So Broadchurch takes place in a small town where a young boy has been murdered out of nowhere. And it kind of follows the lead detectives on the case as they try to piece it together and figure out what happened. And the show does a really good job of kind of leading you in one direction when things are happening in another direction. So when the twist happens, you don't see it coming, but at the same time, it was there all along. This is one of those shows that's really great to like go back and rewatch because you can like pick up on things that you didn't the first time. And it is a really interesting show. Really excited to get to the next seasons of this. And the book that I decided to recommend for this is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. And this may seem a little bit strange to you if you're familiar with either of these pieces of media, but I will explain. So Where the Crawdads Sing follows a young girl who is kind of abandoned by her family, and she is kind of left alone on this house in the marsh, and she takes care of herself, and she does what she needs to do to survive. So she gathers like fish and stuff to sell to the local store to be able to buy the few supplies that she needs. She lives off the land, and it is set in a small town where everyone in town looks down upon her and calls her the marsh girl, and doesn't want like parents will yank their kids away from her if they see her in public. They don't want associate with her or have any of their family associate with her. She's very much an outcast. And there is also at the same time a separate timeline where we're kind of following a murder mystery in the future where someone has died that the Marsh girl knew in the past. And we're kind of seeing like when she meets this boy, and then we're skipping ahead to the future of when this boy is now dead, and everyone being interrogated and the investigation going on, and it's very, very interesting. And the small town vibes definitely remind me of Broadchurch, and they definitely have like a very, very similar vibe where it's just a very eerie small town. Something's not right, the people are just off. It's a very gloomy setting, gloomy atmosphere, and I think both of these just kind of go hand in hand, and it's one of like my favorite types of media, my favorite kind of atmosphere and vibe to a show, and I love it. And the very last show that I'm going to be talking about today is Westworld. This is one that I'm also not caught up on. I think I've seen like a season and a half, 2.5 seasons? I forget. I need to catch up on that again though. And Westworld is a super interesting show. It is a sci-fi show, and it follows this, oh, how do you even describe it? It's like this fake world, kind of like a virtual reality, but it's real. But they've created these like AI kind of robots that are so incredibly similar to humans. They look, they feel like humans, and they act like humans. They have programmed responses, but they're also programmed to like respond to anything and have their own kind of mind, which is very, very scary. And it's kind of like a theme park for rich people. They can go and pay and hang out in Westworld, which is like an old western setting with all of these fake people, and basically it's just like men who go there to like kill people and have sex with them to like fulfill their awful fantasies. But that was never the full intention. It was kind of just like live in the Western world and do whatever the hell you want, which is a super interesting concept for a show. There are also tons and tons of twists and turns, and as you can imagine with a show like this, we are kind of building up to them getting a mind of their own and wanting to do things their own way. Super interesting show, highly, highly recommended if you've never seen it. And there are many books that I feel like I could recommend for this, so I might bring this back in a future episode. I honestly might bring any of these back in a future episode if I like read books or like make connections that I hadn't done so before I filmed this. But yes, the book that I decided to go with is actually a novella, and that is Gwendy's Button Box by Stephen King. So this is a short story that he wrote that follows a girl finding a button box. And basically it is a box with buttons on it. You press it, and you can get like one button will give you like a piece of chocolate that you eat and you're full. But bad things keep happening surrounding this button box. And she gets very like attached to it, and freaky things happen. I obviously can't say too much because it is a short story and I don't want to spoil the entire thing, but it's kind of like what happens when any human gets too much power, whether that's like artificial man-made power or they're in charge of a government, etc., etc. And that is the like a recurring theme in both of these, the like Westworld and Gwendy's Button Box, is absolute power corrupts absolutely. So I think it is super interesting to read this short story after watching Westworld or vice versa. And they are very different stories, but they both have that sci-fi element and of the theme of one person having extreme and absolute power. So they're very, very interesting to compare. And that is it for today. I've been talking forever. My throat hurts. I need to go eat dinner, but I hope that you enjoyed. this was super fun. I am very, very glad that I got this idea. It's not an original idea by any means. I'm sure other people have done it. I can link some down below. I haven't watched any, but I'm very intrigued too to see what connections they've made. But yeah, if you have seen any of these TV shows and you have any recommendations, leave them down below. If you have any TV shows that I should watch to find some recommendations for, leave those below too. Let me know what you thought, what your favorite TV shows are. If you've read any of these books and you loved them, I want to know everything. Tell me your life story in the comments. But yeah, that is it for today. I hope to come back with a part 2 in the next couple of weeks, and I will see you later. Thank you for watching!